So, welcome everyone. This is the part one of two Global Studies presentations this year. And as I think about this year, something about the GS trips and the students that went on them feels a little different. 3 years ago when I started at SMS, we were a school in a world still transitioning out of the global pandemic. As a school, we approached the international program pretty cautiously, not knowing which borders would stay open and how to keep students safe in a time when most people weren't even traveling abroad for vacation. The following year, as COVID felt a little further behind us, we were able to branch out a bit further, travel further east, extending into the African and Asian continents. This year, we pushed even deeper to the far-flung rural Vedic villages in West Africa, to ancient lost cities in Colombia, to extreme heights in the Andes, and to temples almost swallowed whole by the jungle in Southeast Asia. I think that's what feels so different about GS this year. From the perspective of someone back home, highly invested in the students and these experiences, as I'm sure many of you in this room also were, they felt very, very far away. And I think the students too, these trips felt a world away from our little mountain town here in Steamboat Springs, nestled into the Rockies. The cultures they came across and dove into head first felt intensely strange and foreign. But so too was the geography and the climate. The mountains felt much higher, the weather much, much hotter. And that, I think, is the beauty of global studies at SMS. That we are an institution that believes so strongly in a program and a process where pushing into the unknown to the far-flung reaches of the world without knowing necessarily what we'll find there has value. That challenge and unfamiliarity are the mothers of growth and gratitude. We look at the borders of our known world and we wonder what's on the other side. I won't sugarcoat it, and trust me, neither will the students. The trips this year were hard. Everyone, students and faculty alike, felt outside of their comfort zone at some point, and anyone in their shoes would be. They ventured into the unknown and found it to be a place both hostile and welcoming, beautiful and strange, and somehow all of this at once. But when they got there, they redefined their own boundaries and limits. You will hear many stories tonight about this journey, about digging deep inside of oneself to persevere and find beauty and strength in challenge. I think pushing past our known boundaries and limits is a good theme for the year. Learning to roll with the punches, to rely on each other, to ask for help, and to offer it to others. These are fundamental lessons and skills uncovered by these experiences. But not everyone rises to the challenge. And I want to start tonight by saying I'm so proud of all of our global studies students. They have accomplished so much and met the unknown with bravery, with grace, and compassion. They rose to the challenge, redefined what they thought was possible for themselves, and have returned from their adventures to share with us a few of the countless things they learned along the way. But there are other ways in which the program has pushed past our limits and pushed our boundaries. This year we did 4 trips, each fuller than any trip that we've run since my time here. And so we decided to split the GS presentations over the course of 2 days. Tonight, the Senegal and Cambodia groups will be presenting. And then on Tuesday at 9:30 a.m. at our mountain campus, our Colombia and Bolivia groups will be presenting. And we are really excited to hear about their journeys as well. I can assure you they were no less dramatic or inspiring. But without further ado, let's hear from our students and faculty. And again, thank you all for being here and supporting them.
Sit back against the trunk, place bare feet on the thatched mat below you. You breathe in a donkey's distant blare, the call of a rooster putting all his weight behind it. You breathe out, you are handed a mango. A day in Senegal rarely begins without mangoes. Arranged on metal trays as half statues of sun, cut open by our God Tusa for us to sink our teeth into. We greet one another beneath the mango tree, close our eyes beneath the mango tree, watch light pass through tight bundles of green. It is always with mangoes that our weary faces wake to air bursting with fresh bread and heat and smoke, the morning brimming with flavor. And mangoes are everywhere, sold on the sides of roads, purchased by our guides and placed in plastic bags at the front of buses, blended into the sweetest frozen ice by host family parents, and stashed as well from the heat of the day. The mango is more than mango because we say that it is. There is sweet sustenance, communal joy, and expression of gifted hospitality. It is odd to eat a mango alone. We are always together as we savor them. There are knives shared for slicing the mango, buckets of water with which to wash sticky hands once the heat is done. There are exclamations of pure, joyful pleasure as pulp turns yellow and yellow string gets stuck between teeth. Goats chomp on the excess, kids litter the ground. Children use long sticks to coax the mangoes from their vines, swaying, bulbous, bruised unless you are fast on your feet and dart quickly enough to catch one. But perhaps most importantly, mangoes are an invitation to slow down, to return to the moment, to forego urgency. Their sweetness requires presence, their softness requires attention. Slicing the mango is an art, and you become the artist. So, you slow down. You take the knife and sink it into the skin of the mango that was gifted to you. You speak your own words into the cacophony of sound, soft couloir, the greetings of the day. Malkadat, magnifique, salam alaikum, malikum salam, John Toon. Peace be with you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Owen. Every morning of our trip, we did a check-in. On a scale from 1 to 10, we would rate how we were physically, emotionally, and where we were on the poop scale. I'll spare the specifics, but a 5 would be a round of applause, a 10 would give you some laxatives, and a 1 couldn't be stopped. The morning of our road trip, my trekking shoes were stolen, and I was a 2 on the poop scale. But at least I thought it could only get better. I was wrong. Our van broke down 3 times on our way to Rural Canoe. A 10-hour crammed van ride turned to a 17-hour crammed van ride, and halfway through, my 2 turned to a 1. With gritted teeth and beads of sweat, I shot out of the van like a bullet, opening 3 doors that led directly to bedrooms. As I danced around frantically looking for a toilet, a concerned little girl came up to me, pointing me in the right direction and saving my pants. Afterwards, she asked me fluently in hand gestures, "Are you okay?" It was my first time meeting this little girl, yet she held me in a time of need and checked in on me like a friend. That experience was not unusual in Senegal. I had many opportunities for growth in Senegal. I lost my shoes, lost my bowels, got a concussion, got another concussion, broke my nose, but with each obstacle, people's optimism was infectious and everyone wanted to help me. Unfortunately, I had to leave early because of my medical issues, but even on the plane ride back, local Senegalese smiled and laughed as we shared stories. That is what I took home from my trip. Not memories in my nose or my head, but the little boys smiling and calling me banana man as I handed fruits out of the window. Or Abdul and Salu, nervous but excited to join our hack-a-sack game. Senegal taught me that regardless of our differences, there's a part of everyone that wants to share joy. And I will be forever grateful that Senegal shared that joy with me. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Sam. For most of us, music is often a daily part of our lives. Since MP3 players were basically the only piece of technology we were allowed to bring to Senegal, music quickly became a big part of our trip. Throughout our time in Senegal, music was used to connect our group together, connect our group with the locals, share culture, and communicate. There's a massive hip-hop scene in Senegal. At the beginning of the trip in Dakar, Tusa, our guide, and SoundCloud rapper, showed us G-Hip-Hop, a local hip-hop community. We learned how the youth in Senegal use music and hip-hop as an escape from day-to-day life, and a way to share their political ideals and opinions with the world. During our trip, music became a way for us to connect with each other. Sitting around talking and listening to music on our terrible $3 light-up speaker we found at a market quickly became routine. Listening to music was a way for our group to relax and take our minds off the heat. Listening to music from home also gave us all a sense of familiarity. Music also became a way for us to connect with the locals. During our homestay, Alex and I spent time sharing our music, and my homestay siblings did the same. Not only did music become something we shared between our different cultures, but it also became a way for us to communicate. A lot of time that initially would have been silent became filled with American classics and Senegalese hip-hop. Lastly, I saw music and dancing as a way for communities to be together. At the end of our homestay, we all danced to local music from a local drum band with a really loud traffic whistle, and Senegalese/French rave music. We danced with our homestay families, our friends, and all the locals. We had dance circles with little kids who learned popular dances from a dance network. Through this experience, I learned that music can transcend cultural barriers. It can bring people together during hardships, distract us from the heat, and give us new ways to communicate. Thank you.
We were in Boston for one night, staying in a hut with one fan, 3 girls, and very little ventilation. I laid on my back, staring at the straw roof. I was laying in a puddle of sweat stuck to the bed. I couldn't do it anymore, so I went to the sink and soaked my shirt. I sat in front of the fan, blowing hot air. It didn't help. It was 3 a.m. The last thing I could think to do was to sit outside where it was at least somewhat cooler, so I did. I sat there and looked up at the stars, but only saw smog. The tears were coming, and I just wanted to go home. But I remember what my mom had always said. Larja, what's really going to matter 5 years from now? Well, in 5 years, when I look back at high school and think about that time I went to Senegal for 3 weeks, I'm not going to regret it. I'm going to remember that pain is only temporary. I'll still be proud of myself. When I look back at Senegal, I'm going to remember my homestay family and how they named me Fatoumata So after the eldest daughter, and how the kids would come in herds yelling my nickname, which was Fatu. I remember my homestay mom, Cheto, and how when we first met, she hugged me so tight. I remember her smile and how contagious it was. I remember sitting down with my family every night while they cooked, and how we would try to ask questions and use hand signals because we couldn't speak the same language, but it usually always ended in laughing really hard and a lot of confusion. I'll look back at how my homesickness went away when I was around them. That's what's going to matter in 5 years. I remember Samba and Chusa, who are our awesome guides that will always be in my stories. Chusa could laugh for hours and freestyle rap like crazy. Samba had so much knowledge in that noggin of his, and he loved to share it. I'll think about how we had a 17-hour road trip and how the bus broke down 3 times. I remember the baptism when I watched a goat get slaughtered for a newborn baby that I got to hold, and how deeply I felt welcomed and educated on their culture. This trip was hard mentally and physically, but that's not what I'll remember in 5 years. In 5 years, I'll remember the memories that I've made for life and the people I've suffered and laughed with that have become my best friends. I can push myself further than I ever thought. It was all worth it. And I'm grateful to say that I can come back home and share my experiences with my people here. I know that even though I don't think I'll ever go back to the tiny village called Tomato Samba in Senegal, Africa, I'm always welcome and they will always be my Senegalese family. So no, it won't matter how hard it was in the moment 5 years from now. It will just be one heck of a story. Thank you.
My name is Sunny. After landing in Dakar, the capital of Senegal, our guides greeted us with big smiles and open arms, and immediately brought us to a coastal restaurant for lunch. We arrived at the restaurant jet-lagged, hungry, and ready to have our first taste of Senegalese food. Before eating, our guides explained that in Senegal, it is customary for around 5 people to share a single food platter. So that's exactly what we did. Throughout our stay, communal eating was a recurring theme, bringing everyone together and providing a welcoming pause in our chaotic days. The meals often consisted of rice, sauce, and some meat, usually fish, goat, or chicken, and sometimes cooked veggies. Our group might have been slightly traumatized by the amount of rice we ate during our time in Senegal, but the late night dinner conversations made it well worth it. No matter how tired or sick we felt, there was always enough energy to sit and eat together. In preparation preparation for our homestays, Samba, our guide, taught us 3 very important rules of communal eating. 1, always eat from your side of the platter. 2, if you have a big piece of carrot on your side of the platter, cut it up and share it with others. 3, when you're done eating, carefully gather your leftovers in a neat pile for someone to enjoy later, and leave your spoon against the outside of the platter. Community eating gave us the opportunity to truly connect with our homestays, because no matter how large the language barrier might be, food is always a universal language. While eating with my homestay family, someone was always cutting out my food for me and pushing it onto my side of the platter, saying yum, the Pular word for eat. No matter how many niharis, aka I'm full, I said, my family insisted I needed more food, and usually at the end of the meal I was too full to move. This never-ending battle of yums and niharis over a plate of rice and sauce only scratched the surface of the generosity and love our family showed us. Within 5 days, my homestay family went from complete strangers to a loving family who didn't blink twice when it came to sharing everything they had with me. Even though I might need a very long break from rice, the sense of community and generosity associated with communal eating has left its mark on how I view food and my willingness and excitement to share the things we care about with others. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Addie. In the village of Tomato Samba, where we did our homestay stretch of the trip, I was placed in a village where my dad had 2 wives. Never in my life before this have I been exposed to this sort of relationship other than what Western media had to show. It didn't even cross my mind when I walked in and saw 2 women that they were both the wives of one man. I thought they might be friends visiting each other, or maybe one was a maid, or even that they were in a relationship. When my dad walked in and explained with the minimal English he spoke that the 2 women before me were his first and second wife, I was taken aback. The only thing I knew about polyamorous relationships coming into this trip was from shows I watched about cults, so my perception of them was very negative. It was something in my brain that I couldn't comprehend. It seemed too different from the norm of the Western world to be real. However, I was in it, and no matter how uncomfortable I felt about it, this was my family for 4 days. After about a day when I started settling in, I started to have more interactions with my dad and 2 moms, and started being able to look past the type of relationship they were in, and see them for the other qualities they possessed. How loving and caring they were, whether forcing me to eat because they were worried I wasn't eating enough, doing everything they could to make sure I stayed as cool as possible in the extreme heat, and putting my well-being above their own no matter what. I had just met these people. I was shocked at their willingness to fully embrace a whole new person into their lives, even if it was just for 4 days. I started realizing that this life was the norm for them. This was how they had grown up and lived their whole lives, and no matter how different it was for me to be around, this was something that they felt very comfortable with. I have grown up in a family that is also different from the norm of our community. Growing up with 4 moms, I became tired of constantly having to explain my family to others. It was my normal. I realized that this was their normal, and they were probably tired of explaining their family to others as well. By the end of our homestay, I realized that no matter how different their life might seem from mine, there were endless amounts of similarities between these differences.
Hey, I'm Hansa, and this year of global studies, I was lucky enough to interact with and meet many different people. On this trip, I truly learned that kindness goes a long way. During our trek to a Vedic village, which are known for being hidden at the top of the hills, Alex, Sen, Owen, Kaz, and I decided to play hack and set, since we needed to engage ourselves during the break before our hike to the village. We saw a group of kids sitting around, so we decided to invite them to play with us. They quickly picked up how to play and started calling their friends over to also join in. After we finished our game and it was time for us to hike, they asked if they could come up and help, since they do this hike every day to get to the village. With our consideration, we agreed. Their presence made a huge difference and turned a difficult hot hike into a fun and enjoyable experience. This made me realize that even a little act of kindness can change casual moments into a memorable experience for both sides. Another thing I've learned after not being able to communicate verbally, since we are still pretty early into the third and have not learned enough of their language yet. But even with the language barrier, we managed to communicate by using hand signs and driving to the dirt. Through this, I have noticed that even though we have different lives, experiences, and values, we are also just humans who enjoy similar things and laugh at the same jokes. So as I reflect on my time in Senegal, I went on this trip hoping to learn from each other's differences, but instead I learned that we aren't so different after all. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ian. It was hard to communicate with the people in Senegal, especially our homestay families, when we had to fend for ourselves without a translator. Our homestay family spoke Goulart and French, neither of which I am remotely competent with. Without a common language, our options for activity were extremely limited. My normal pastimes, such as chess, were impossible. On a previous occasion, Alex and I had attempted to teach them chess, however failed miserably. So what were we to do? The answer was soccer. As soon as I arrived at our homestay, some of the children immediately ran to grab a soccer ball and motioned me over to the shed. We were going to use that as the goal. We were entertained for hours with just that soccer ball. It was a way for me to connect and even communicate with the kids without using spoken words. Each evening, the father on our homestay would bring the TV outside. People from the family, around town, and out of town would show up to watch the game. We would gather around on our plastic chairs, each person on the edge of their seat as the sun set and the game went on. Wooden stools and a bed frame served as overflow seating for other eager spectators. What made the game exciting was not just the match itself, but being surrounded by others who would cheer and groan at each play. It made something as small as a foul or a steal a chance to experience happiness, excitement, or disappointment for people who could barely even understand my greetings. What made the experience a memorable one was the mutual respect formed between us. There was a connection deeper than words or communication. There was an emotional bond between me and my hosts. It showcased the idea that human connection lies not in words, but in shared experiences and passions. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Eva. One morning we piled into a van heading towards Kadogu. Our group stopped in a small town for breakfast. A short walk from the van brought us to a curtain-covered doorway. I opened the curtain and stepped into the room. Sheets of metal in all sizes covered the walls, creating a patchwork of textures. Curtains decorated in blue, red, and white floral patterns acted as a door. We sat on wooden benches that creaked with our weight. In front of us, a table held bowls, seasonings, and a peeling tablecloth. Flies flitted from surface to surface as we waited in the heat. A stack of egg cartons stood in one corner of the room, evidence of all the mouths our host had fed. We watched as she cracked eggs into a bowl, scrambled them, and poured them in a hot pan. My first thoughts when stepping into this space were quite negative. I focused on how different the room was from my home. The walls pieced together, the flies, the trash, the mismatched dishes. I was uncomfortable, and yet our host looked perfectly at ease. In an effort to comfort myself, I tried to find similarities in the room. And I was surprised at how similar it was. I started simple. This is a house, and I have a house. There were tables and chairs like in my kitchen. We were eating eggs, I eat eggs. Then I looked closer. Instead of seeing the walls as unstable and rustic, I now saw them as a form of protection. The sound of a sizzling frying pan was comforting instead of a possible fire hazard. There was a door and a window to let in light and people. Having a new perspective turned an uncomfortable moment into an enjoyable breakfast. Throughout the rest of the trip, I consciously focused on my perspective, challenging myself to see the similarities in the places we went. I found smiles and happiness in the faces of my homestay brothers and sisters, beauty and simplicity in the houses and hotels,
Stories and feelings in art and history. A change in perspective turned a scary moment into a fond memory. I plan to carry this new viewpoint in my everyday life, focusing on similarities, not differences.
Hello, I'm Alex. This is my third GS trip. Throughout them, I've noticed a common theme. During these trips, we take photos with locals and guides, but have no way to give them a copy of it. After every trip, everyone, me included, uploads their photos into Google Drive, makes an Instagram post, and forgets about it. This year, I decided to create a more memorable way to connect with people. I left Denver with a Polaroid camera and 110 undeveloped photos, expecting to save most of them. What ended up happening is I gave away over 90 photos. Every photo on the slideshow was printed out, probably more than once, and given away. At the beginning of the trip, we went to an island called Florida. One of the more touristy spots in Senegal, there were many vendors walking around, asking me to buy things. One approached Sam and I, trying to sell us drones. We declined, but offered to take a photo with him. After handing him the Polaroid, he instantly became a friend, and not a vendor. We were able to have a 5-minute conversation filled with broken English and surface-level French, attempting to exchange our cultures. Halfway through the trip, we hiked to a Vedic village. We played hacky sack with some of the kids, and then took a photo. I printed one copy, and then put my camera in it. After I printed a photo to one kid, another approached me asking for his copy. By the end of the day, I had printed over 30 Polaroids. My camera offered me a way to give something to the people I just met. Instead of taking a photo that they will never see, I was able to give them something that they could cherish and hold on to. Although I couldn't really speak French, Wolof, or Pulaar, through Polaroids, I was able to connect with locals and leave them with a physical memory of our group. In the United States, so many people have a camera, and photos of themselves from the background. In Senegal, I discovered that the same is not true. Not everyone can afford to own a camera or even a phone to take pictures. Therefore, my photos also became an unexpected gift, with some kids asking for a solo shot of themselves that they could hold on to. In past trips, it felt easy to notice the difference between locals and I, and it sometimes seemed harder to relate to people. On this trip, once I handed them a Polaroid, I instantly felt a sense of commonality. With my camera, I was able to break the barrier of tourism and create an exchange of humanity. Thank you.
Hi, Tom. Drumming helped us connect deeper into the culture of Senegal. At first, it started with a lesson. Our instructor, Mamadou, constantly said we were great, but we didn't. After our first lesson, I asked who would be interested in drumming for our independent study project, which was a part of Where They Were Januaries. When I asked, Sam, Alex, and Kaz all responded. Our sessions began with just drumming. Soon after, we learned that our goal was to master a song enough to perform in our whole village. Slowly, more people heard the echoes of our drums. They started to show up under the 2 mango trees towering above us. After about 30 minutes of practice, there were 30 to 40 kids surrounding us, playing drums on their heads and stomachs. Soon, the drumming sessions turned from a lesson into a deeper connection to the village. Although we couldn't speak to the kids, they were enjoying hearing and watching us drum. Over time, the village would show up within 5 minutes of us playing the first beat in our drum lesson. The kids were all so intrigued by us, and we were just as interested in them. They opened my eyes to something new, how just a simple activity can transform into something that I will remember forever. Mamadou told us, I don't want to present something bad, I want to look good. So to honor him, we practiced for hours and hours each day, and we kept going, all of our hands with blisters and soreness. After so many hours of practice and training, we had to present our song to the whole village of Toronto. It was night, and the street lamp shined light on our drums. We all got prepared, and Mamadou said, don't disappoint me. The whole village began to clap, and then our homestay families walked up and began to dance and clap around us. And when it came time to end the song, we totally screwed it up. As we all laughed with slight disappointment, we decided to do it again. So we did, and we executed it perfectly. Drumming is more than just music. It gives connections that we never expected. Drumming for all of us was the final step of integration and community development. Tamanto Samba opened my eyes to a new way of living and creating new experiences. Thank you.
It's a new type of tea from our trip to Senegal, the Thai, which everyone drinks, and I love it. Each part of the process of making a kaya is a metaphor of an experience I had on my trip to Western Africa. The first part of making a kaya is putting the leaves in a teapot and letting it heat up to boil. This part takes a long time, but it's also very important because it's time to be social, where you can have engaging conversations with people around you. Just like the tea, many parts of the trip took a long time. For example, a 17-hour car ride or trekking along a highway in 115-degree weather. But having conversations, exchanging music, and making each other laugh made it go much faster and made it much more enjoyable. The next step in making the kaya is adding sugar. And believe me, it's a lot of sugar. And mint if you want into the pot. This part of making the tea can be a representation of spicing up the trip by learning new things about the Senegalese culture, like visiting a traditional gold mine or touring a large mosque in Western Africa, where thousands of Muslims go every day. After you add these ingredients, pour some tea into 2 glasses to make the sugar foam, which you cover the upper half of the cup. To create this foam, you pour the tea from one glass into the other over and over again, which is like our language lessons in Pular and Wolof, where we spend hours learning to speak these native languages. A quote from our guide Sam is, "Man, it's embarrassing if you don't have." Oh. And if I did not learn these languages, it would have been embarrassing for me to not be able to create any connections with my homestay family and people I met on the trip. The last step in making a kaya is pouring and drinking this tea. You never drink this sweet tea by yourself, and rather you enjoy it with another person or a group of people. The best part for me was visiting the waterfall and spending time with my homestay family, because I was enjoying the time with the group and my family. Overall, all parts of making a kaya are important, just as all the parts of our trip were important in making it a memorable and amazing experience.
Upon meeting people for the first time in Senegal, we'd say, "Assalamu alaikum," peace upon you. And after every alaikum salam, the response, I had one of my most paramount realizations during my trip, which was that happiness is not defined in one way. Our lives in Senegal were vastly different from our lives here, but a common trait was that we had ear-to-ear smiles as we made it through thrilling but hard times. However, it wasn't always the assumed aspects bringing us joy. Often, it was the most easy to miss things. It was the simple greetings, but also the way the crisp waterfall in Dindefelo gave us a chance to ease weary bodies as we jumped in all at once, the hacky sack games with a group of local children where Alex exchanged tangible memories of Polaroid photos, is this I'm sorry? It is working. Or perhaps the festive breeze which wiped away our sweat and replaced tired smiles with relieved ones as we toured the gold mines of Kadogu and stopped along the river where wind channeled through to us. I found myself being able to relinquish a sense of control in more difficult situations and let my happiness come naturally from what was happening to us and with us. This was a formidable task, not knowing if the bus ride would be its original 10 hours, or perhaps stretched to a painful 17, or lying in a bed in 90-degree temperatures and finding a bit of satisfaction in a fan which spun to cool us for about a second before moving on, letting its relief linger for just a moment. The authenticity of the experience brought a raw form of joy, that we had the chance to live a life different from our own and to relish the moments, some little, some not, and to let the world play its role in our journey. Happiness certainly wasn't always constant, but when it was present, it was real. It was thanks to the smaller moments that would lighten a heavy day. On this trip, more than any other time in my life, I understood the importance of the word serendipity, that it is the unexpected that brings joy. During Senegal, I was challenged in ways I couldn't have predicted, but in those difficulties, I grasped the idea that the presence of happiness is in every nook and cranny, and certainly within the gusts of wind. The experiences I had there were lessons I'll keep teaching myself and others, and hopefully ones I can take with me throughout life. Thank you. himself Samba the Goat Eater. He was one of our 2 guides on this trip throughout Senegal. Samba was one of the most positive people I have ever met. Every morning, he would greet all of us with the biggest smile. No matter how any of us were feeling that day, his "How you doing, man?" or his "Good morning, man," always put each and every one of us in a good mood. Samba was also a great teacher. Every day I learned something new from Samba. Samba taught us many things, including the languages, cultures, and religions that were present in Senegal. Samba was very eager to teach us, and was happy to take his time to teach us, always making sure we would be able to ask all the questions we wanted. I was really grateful for this. On one of our treks, heading to the border of Guinea-Bissau, Samba stopped along the road many times, pointing out different trees and their uses in his culture. Medicines for wounds, teas for sickness, and also solutions for constipation. But I think learning Pular from Samba was one of my favorite and most helpful lessons. Pular is a language widely spoken in parts of Senegal and in the local language of Tomanto. Tomanto is a village that Samba grew up in and was introduced to us as our homestays. Using the Pular lessons Samba taught me, I was able to make so many new connections with the kids throughout the village and my homestay family. I was able to have some knowledge about their culture and ask questions of them personally. Samba taught me to be open and eager to learn, and for that, I will always remember the new skills I picked up in Tomanto Samba. Thank you for Samba for all that you taught us, and for all that you did for us, especially getting us all those cold waters, which were very much needed. Thank you for encouraging all of us to be curious, and thank you for opening up your home to us. I will always remember your funny and positive personality and how much you helped me grow throughout the trip. Thanks, ma'am.
Hello. Hi, I'm Anya. Time is a weird thing. It either feels like it's moving at a snail's pace or it flies by. In Senegal, I experienced both ends of this spectrum and everything in between. One day, when time felt incredibly slow, was on our drive from Dakar to Kadogu. It was supposed to take 10 hours. Instead, it took 17, but it felt like 30. At one point, we were sitting in a mechanic shop in the middle of the city waiting for our bus's transmission to be fixed. We hadn't acclimated to the heat and some car sickness still lingered. The minutes seemed to pass like hours. Throughout the whole day, I was looking at my watch and counting down the minutes to nothing in particular. Our guides reminded us of the idea we had talked about days before, Senegalese time. Time is different here, Samba said. People are flexible and time is flexible. Initially, I interpreted this idea as an excuse Senegalese used when they were arriving late to a meal or to justify the busy traffic. Senegalese time is fun. You will never truly understand what people are talking about until you've experienced it for yourself. A point in the trip that I experienced in police time was during our homestay in Toronto, Samba. It was evening, and my sisters, Sajo, Mariana, and Sally, began leading me on a trail away from our house. I had no plans to meet the group and no other commitments, so I followed them. We raced to the boutiques and got chips and a mango drink. My sisters then led me around the whole town to meet all their friends in the village's babies. We raced in between houses, and we finally were able to communicate enough to joke around. It was one of the first times in the trip that I wasn't constantly thinking about what I was doing next or what time this moment needed to wrap up. I was free to live completely in the moment. As we enter summer and our days become more flexible, I encourage you all to take days unplanned and to live in the moment. You will be amazed at the things you are capable of appreciating when the clock isn't constantly ticking in the back of your mind. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jolie. I'm one of the other leaders for the trip. And tonight, the inspiration for my presentation were all of these people. So I wrote you all a thank you note. Dear Senegal Global Studies students, thank you for an epic adventure. Listening to your speeches brings me such joy and admiration. Your topics eloquently symbolized centerpieces of Senegalese culture that bring people together. Drumming, music, ataya, soccer. You presented on traditions that embodies Turanga, Senegalese hospitality. And some of you poignantly reflected on larger themes like recognizing the small delights or redefining your relationship with time. This trip was tough. We ate hot canned sardines, broke down on a handful of buses, and threw ourselves into rural life. Despite the blood, sweat, tears, and hospital visits, you embraced the experience by leaning into it. You individually danced in front of an entire village. You spoke broken Goulart at homestays, and you adopted Samba and Tusa as our family. Learning through doing and debriefs were baked into this experience. Not only did you expertly execute cartwheels in Guinea-Bissau, but you also engaged in thoughtful discussions on borders, colonialism, and resource management. You learned how to perfect the somersault with the Senegalese circus team, and you also reflected thoughtfully on the door of no return on Gorée Island, the largest slave port in Africa for 300 years, where 40 million people crossed the threshold into enslavement. Thank you for showing up thoughtfully to that space. Global Studies family, we persevered hot temperatures and explored our bandwidths of physical, mental, and emotional resiliency. We learned that we are durable. We also all returned home knowing that we can get through tough moments, that discomfort does not dictate enjoyment, and that bread and mayonnaise is actually a delightful breakfast. Thank you all for a memorable adventure and your thoughtful reflections. Jerry Jeff on drama.
Hello, everyone. I'm Lady Haas, and this is the Future There. We led our seniors through Cambodia this year. The beauty of traveling the SNS way is that each of us will come out of the journey with a different story to tell. A story about the extreme heat we experienced is actually a story about resilience and fortitude. A story about all the delicious rice-based meals we ate is ultimately a story about culture. A story about the S-21 Museum and the atrocities perpetrated by the Khmer Rouge is a story about the hopes and dreams of a country trying to heal. Before our students share their personal stories with you tonight, we wanted to outline some of the highlights from our itineraries so you all have some context.
In Phnom Penh, we rode tuk-tuks all over the city. We're introduced to Buddhism, explored the local market, and visited the S-21 Museum, a former school turned prison and torture center during the Khmer Rouge occupation of the city. During our homestay at a rural island village on the Mekong River, we tried to deal with the oppressive 105-degree heat, ate locally grown food, practiced our Khmer language skills, met with prominent local figures, had a dance party with our homestay families, and rode on tractors to a pagoda for a water blessing. In Siem Reap, we visited the Angkor Wat, along with many other impressive temples strewn throughout the jungle. We learned about the landmine crisis, met with the winner of the 1997 Nobel Peace Prize, and allowed tiny fish to nibble dead skin from our feet. Battambang was our next stop, a small city far from the beaten path, dedicated to the promotion of Cambodian arts. This is where X Phase occurred. Our students were responsible for planning activities, organizing meals, budgeting, and arranging transportation for the group. This was a highlight for our students, as they had an opportunity for their leadership skills to be put to the test. We took a Khmer cooking class, did a circus skills workshop, met with monks at a Buddhist university, and danced Zumba in the park with the locals. We finished the trip in the beautiful oceanside town of Kampot, famous for its pepper farms. This was a period of deep reflection for our group as we closed in on the final days of our epic Cambodian journey.
Our Cambodia story is multifaceted, but it is ultimately one of gratitude. We feel lucky to work for an institution that values this type of immersive, mind-opening cultural experience. We feel fortunate that our kids can be outside without worrying about landmines. And we are thrilled to have experienced it all with this fantastic group of capable and fun students on the cusp of their final days as Steamboat Mountain School seniors. Their growth is celebrated and reflected here tonight in the telling of their individual stories.
Okay. Hello, my name is Sienna Lichtenfeld. I went to this GS trip with the least assumptions about a country so far. I knew history, but not truly what to expect. Once we arrived in Phnom Penh and left the airport, I was truly thrown into it. My mindset was focused on trying to make do with the uncomfortable, but not forgetting the uncomfortable. Throughout the challenges of our journey, there were so many moments that made me just forget. Forget about the stress, forget about the hardships, and even forget about the heat. While arriving on the island of Koh Tao, there were countless memories from the times we had to ourselves. Bodie and I arrived at our homestay and met our homestay mom and sisters. Each night, I tried to think of the best ways to bond with a complete language barrier. I decided to go for it, and the relationships began to flow. We spent hours drawing and giggling with the sisters, and afternoons swinging on the hammocks with our mom, just in the presence of one another. It wasn't until we had to bike back to our community center that I was reminded of the piercing sun. We would arrive at the center at the hottest point of the day, but luckily, our group was presented with the opportunity to swim. Let me tell you, those sunset swims never disappointed. Our group messed around and enjoyed the lukewarm water to help us cool down, while admiring the setting sun glowing above us. Eventually, we arrived at the end of our time in the homestays, and shared a celebration full of excitement and dancing, sharing our favorite music from our countries while reflecting on our time together. Throughout the rest of our time, we traveled to Siem Reap, Baong Bong, and Kampot. In Siem Reap, we had the chance to do our morning check-in at the Temple of Angkor Wat, one of the most grand monuments in Cambodia. In Baong Bong, we walked to the park where we joined dance in Zumba and traditional Cambodian dances that had us sweating like never before, but we were too ecstatic to mind. And on the final leg of the trip in Kampot, we got the privilege of enjoying more sunset swims and endless treats from the guest house's kitchen. I arrived at home and attempted to explain my time to my parents and friends, and I realized how I continued to circle back to those moments of unexpected joy in my hardest moments. You would never truly understand it unless you experienced it, which encourages me to tell you to take the chance if you're presented with these opportunities. Sometimes the best memories are those small, unplanned moments that you get to share with the people around you. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sophia. I'm from Egypt, and as a senior here, I have the opportunity to go to Cambodia, a country halfway across the world in Southeast Asia. During my time on this trip, our group stayed in homestays in a village called Koh Tao, located on an island in the Mekong River. I learned a lot about the way Cambodians live their day-to-day lives, things such as what they eat for every meal, how they dress, how they sleep, and so on. I got to experience using a Cambodian squatty potty and a bucket shower for the first time. Everyone in our group would bike back and forth from our homestay to the community center for meals and activities such as taking Khmer lessons with our Cambodian guides, Moni and Kim. We had sit-down talks with figures from the village about their achievements, their hardships growing up, and what they currently do. My homestay mom went above and beyond when it came to taking care of me and my homestay partner, Isa. She'd do things such as making sure our fan grill was working, although the electricity wasn't always great. I'd even seen her get up at 3 a.m. fixing one of our fans. On the last night of our homestay, there was a storm at midnight, which resulted in leaking in a roof near where we were sleeping. Without hesitation, she got up and started working on fixing it so that we could sleep comfortably. She also turned the fans off to ensure we wouldn't get electrocuted. On her last day, she dressed us up in formal wear for the water ceremony and tailored the clothing to make sure that they fit properly. She was a very hard worker who also had to manage 2 kids of her own. We were on this island for a total of 5 days, which may not seem like much, but it was truly an eye-opening experience. I was so grateful for my homestay mom for being such a great host, for the people of the village for being so welcoming, and for the speakers who came to talk to us and were willing to share their backstory to us. I learned that adjusting to new lifestyles is not so hard, and that you shouldn't be opposed or afraid of new things until you've tried them.
This trip helped me learn more about myself and how I'm capable of perseverance in new environments. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Bodhi Tater Brown. As an ancient history fanatic, our trip to Cambodia was an experience to say the least, filled with temples that have century-old stories etched into the walls. Angkor Wat is the most well-known, a large temple filled with art deserving of its name. The Cambodians are proud of it, sporting the temple on their national flag for a reason. But for me, I favor the first temple we visited, Tháp Rome. Exploring Tháp Rome was like stepping into a painting. Crumbling stone walls were paired with crushed stone and adorned with worn, intricate carvings covered in green. Vines came through the windows and tree roots clung to the outer walls of the temple like a waterfall. Not overgrown in a neglected way, but in a peaceful coexistence. We saw photos of what the site used to look like before reconstruction. So much work and care went into bringing back what once was. In my eyes, it truly showed how much the Cambodian people felt and cared for their history and culture. Tháp Rome, with its crumbling beauty, resonated with me on a deeper level. It means a lot to me to have the opportunity to have such an experience in the first place. It felt personal. Something that I, a white, atheist, privileged teen, could only relate to because of the unique experiences provided to me by my family at school. Our guide, Moni, explained how a king built it to honor his mother in Mahayana Bodhisattva, someone who's reached enlightenment but chooses to stay on earth to guide others towards it. A compassionate figure. Coincidentally, the Bodhisattva was my dad's inspiration for my belief. The temples of Cambodia are special in their own ways. Dedicated, built, and carved delicately in a way that makes them personal to people in the past and present, born or not. I'm glad I was able to find how Cambodia is so personal to me. Hi, I'm Cheyenne, and red is not my favorite color. At least that's what I thought after a water lesson where Mom presented us with red string bracelets. He explained that it was a Buddhist symbol of peace, happiness, safe travels, and more. And while I thought it was an interesting idea, I couldn't help but think it was a bit of a touristy gimmick to make you feel like we were more in touch with the culture. Not thinking much more of it, we left the pagoda and headed for the next 20 days in Cambodia. We visited temples, talked to locals, sweat some more, and ate more rice than I thought was possible. On our fourth day, we went to the S-21 Museum, which documents the Cambodian genocide. The site was used as a security prison from 1975 until its fall in 1979. The Khmer Rouge imprisoned, starved, tortured, and executed 2 million of the Cambodian people. The afternoon following the tour, we had a tuk-tuk ride home where I kept thinking about how this genocide was only 40 years ago and how much Cambodia has built itself back up, bringing back culture and traditions that had been forced away, giving people the chance for education, and basically starting over. I thought about the traditional dancing we had been seeing and the number of artists who were flourishing, even though 90% of artists were killed by the Khmer Rouge. I thought about all of the programs we visited and people we met that were devoted to keeping Cambodia's culture vibrant. Right then, our tuk-tuk made a sharp turn and we whizzed by a man selling fish in a market stall. There, I saw a red string tied around his wrist. In the street, I found the threads dangling from the handle of a motorbike and at least 20 others in the traffic. They were everywhere, displayed on the wrists of both the young and the old, on beat-up tuk-tuks and brand-new cars. Some new and some tattered and worn, but all shone proudly. I started to realize that the bracelet wasn't really a touristy gimmick at all. Instead, it was a symbol of well-being, happiness, and protection. What sticks with me most is how Cambodia has risen from pain and suffering and together chose peace instead of hate. Tied together with red strings, these people have supported each other, loved one another, forgiven each other, and above all, wanted happiness. Even as a foreigner, I wore my bracelet with pride, along with a new appreciation and meaning of strength, peace, and what it means to have a community.
Hello, I'm Nate. Hello, I'm Nate. During the Vietnam War, the U.S. bombed dropped more bombs on Cambodia than the Allies did in all of World War II. In total, 2.7 million tons of bombs were dropped on more than 113,000 locations in Cambodia. This information was new and shocking to our group. Some of the bombs did not detonate on impact and can explode unexpectedly. To this day, Cambodians are still being injured or killed. The Vietnam War did not just impact Vietnam. Cambodia wanted to stay neutral at the beginning of the Vietnam War. However, Vietnamese troops began to spill into Cambodia to move supplies and arms. The Prince of Cambodia was blamed for this, and he was removed from power. He was replaced by Lô Nol. Lô Nol allowed for the U.S. and South Vietnam to operate in Cambodian territory. All the while, Nixon was secretly bombing communist bases and supply zones in the Cambodian countryside. As communist Vietnamese began to move further into Cambodia, Nixon withdrew ground troops but provided military aid and continued airstrikes. After the Vietnam War ended, there was a lot of instability when the Khmer Rouge were in power. Many of my peers will talk about the Khmer Rouge, so I won't go into details here. Today, Cambodians are not angry or spiteful because they experience pain. They are friendly. Many people may want to give up after so much, but not Cambodia. Cambodians are resilient. No matter how much people go through, people can come together and heal. Today, Cambodia is a place of rebuilding. Even after all the destruction and hardship they endured, even after pain and suffering, people can be kind-hearted and learn to forgive. I feel honored to be witness to this.
I didn't have much to do to fill space between activities. So while at the S21 Museum, I found a woman advertising a book called First They Killed My Father by Long Hoon. The title caught my interest. I read the book in 3 days, and by the end of it, I felt sorrowful that someone such a young age had to go through so much. Long Hoon was an upper middle class girl, 5 years of age, living in Phnom Penh when the Khmer Rouge told her family to evacuate on April 17, 1975. She didn't know where she was going and had to leave her home, family, and pets. Throughout those long 4 years of not knowing what was happening, she constantly witnessed the sounds of bombs dropping on her home and bullets flying past her. Within all those hardships, she lost 4 of her family members, her mother, father, and 2 sisters. On January 7, 1979, the Khmer Rouge regime ended when communist Vietnam invaded Cambodia. Long Hoon ended up immigrating to Thailand with the remaining family members and went to the United States with her brother. Once the war ended, the country was destroyed. Buildings had fallen, and people had to live with the physical and mental challenges that came after. Long Hoon's story made me think about my own life growing up. Living in a small town in Spain, I never had to worry whether I was going to get food or if I could go outside without getting stopped by a soldier and called a traitor. That's what Cambodians went through for 4 years. The constant uncertainty of what could happen next, the worry. 50 years later, the country has built itself from nothing. It was beautiful. The buildings that had emerged and the people were kind and positive. They've created peace among themselves, and I'm so grateful to have had the opportunity to witness this firsthand.
Fixation on the positive, on what's better, what's superior, only serves to remind us over and over again of what we are not, of what we lack, of what we should have been but failed to be. Mark Manson. My name is Jason, and thank you for coming. Be grateful. When you get in bed and think about how stiff your mattress is, and dream of that soft mattress you laid on that one time, be grateful you aren't laying on the concrete ground with 2 other people in the room the size of a broom closet. When you complain about the loud dog barking that's keeping you up, be grateful that that noise isn't your mom screaming, that she's being tortured for crimes she never committed because she was looking for your dad who had been taken prisoner. When you complain that you live in America, be grateful you don't live in a communist regime where the government controls everything you do and is actively seeking you out to place you in prisons like S21. What is S21, you may ask? S21 was a former school transformed into an interrogation center and prison Out of the 17,000 prisoners that were taken here, only 12 survived. I had the chance to meet with one of the surviving children who had to hide in a pile of clothes for a week until the Vietnamese soldiers came and rescued him and his brother. He told me to always appreciate what I have, because compared to what happened to them, our problems are their dreams. When that tub of ice cream that's more important than life itself goes up 10 cents, and you're ready to spike it on the ground in the middle of the store, stop and be grateful you can afford the ice cream in the first place. When you consistently compare yourself to someone who has more than you, you will always be a disappointment to yourself. When your values are immediately controllable and reality-based, you'll start caring about things that actually matter, like a house and a family, not beating yourself up because you don't have a private jet. When you realize that some people in the world go through extreme communist regimes that force them to work and relocate away from their families, the free democratic country that provides opportunity and God-given rights to you won't seem that bad.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ben Hempel, and tonight I will be talking about the present-day impact of the landmines in Cambodia. In the country of Cambodia, there are still roughly 4 to 6 million unexploded landmines on the ground. The landmines dropped by planes were designed to explode upon impact. However, only 40 to 70% did. The rest are still scattered around and are ready to detonate at any second. Due to this, on average, 2 to 3 Cambodians lose an arm, leg, their sight, or even their life every day. At the Cambodian Landmine Museum in Siem Reap, we met our tour guide who was directly affected by a landmine. He shared his story about how a single landmine from years before had changed his life forever. One day, when he was just a kid, he played a game of chase with his brother and sister. They were on a family farm running around and having a good time. At one point, his brother and sister were chasing him, and he tripped on the landmine. The explosion injured his leg as opposed to taking his life. He got lucky in that way. However, his brother and sister were not so fortunate. The discharge from the landmine went straight towards them and gave them severe TNT burns. They were all rushed to the hospital where his leg was amputated. His brother and sister died hours later from the burns. Our guide has made a turnaround in his life and is now a positive and happy person, enjoying his life as much as he can. Every day he meets with guests like me, who he takes through the museum, continuing to raise awareness about the landmines. His story was very impactful and memorable for me, and made me also want to share about his life and raise awareness for the impact of landmines with you all tonight. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Andrew Calvarez, and I'll be talking about the aftermath of the Khmer Rouge and an important person who helped out the community. After the war, the country was left in pieces, with cities wrecked and its cultural and religious practices almost disappeared. As time went on, people started to rebuild their lives and bring back old traditions, while also reaching out to help others in need. Even though the war's been over for the past 50 years, not everything's back to normal, due to the millions of landmines that were placed during the war, which still affect millions to this day. There was this one guy in particular that stood out to me, a 53-year-old man named Akira. As a kid, his parents were killed by the Khmer Rouge, and by 13, he was forced to join them by laying landmines all across the country. When he was around 16, he started to become more conscious that the things that he was doing were not okay, and he had to stop. So in 1992, he decided to make a change. He went out with just a wooden stick and his hands to disarm and dispose of active landmines. He was able to remove 50,000 of them just by himself. He now works with a team to remove active landmines every day and is hoping to get fully rid of them within the next few years. I never knew about Cambodia before this trip, way less about the most recent war. Looking back on this trip, I will be a lot more grateful for where I am and for the opportunities I was given. And I will find new ways to support the people in need. Considering the story of Akira, who was a soldier as a kid, laying down landmines all across the country, to an adult removing them and helping the community heal, it's inspiring and it's a powerful example of change and dedication. His actions help me see that it's possible to make a difference and make a positive impact no matter our past. I'm inspired and motivated to find different ways to contribute to causes that will help people overcome traumatizing events, just like Akira has done for Cambodia. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Samuel Thomas, and thank you for coming to our GS presentations. Cambodia, like many other developing countries, is corrupt. Even though some votes don't count for elections, people can be bribed more easily than in other countries. All of the people I talked with were hopeful for the future of the country. In my talk with our guide, Moni, he told me about growing up in Cambodia and how he saw his country change. Moni saw firsthand, while growing up alongside his country, all of the changes that took place. Despite these changes, he still remained hopeful for his future and for his people's futures. Moni's parents were alive during the time of the Khmer Rouge, and he grew up after that, during a time when the country was restructuring itself. One time, when I was talking with Moni in a tuk-tuk, he told me he wanted the ticket price to the temple Angkor Wat and also the surrounding temples. Originally, a family in Cambodia had negotiated with the government for a 100-year contract for Angkor Wat. They could profit from and set the ticket prices for Angkor Wat and surrounding temples. The people in Cambodia were not happy with the government's decision to sell off the tickets for a religious and local monument, but they remained hopeful that change would come, and eventually the ownership was turned back over to the government. In general, the Cambodians I met remained hopeful for their country, and everyone was excited to contribute to its history and culture. We met with an artist and listened to his story about becoming an artist and his outlook on the future of his country. He was hopeful and proud about the future, and happy that he was able to contribute to Cambodia's culture and spread his artistic views. My homestay dad, Saksin, was another example of a positive outlook for Cambodia's future. When he was in 9th grade, he could no longer continue school and had to work with his family. After this, when the Khmer Rouge took over, he was given a choice: become a doctor or die. Even with all of this adversity in his life, he still remained hopeful and positive about Cambodia's future, and was willing to learn and educate himself in order to make a positive impact. In short, the people I met and spoke with during my time in Cambodia were hopeful, happy, and maintained a positive outlook on their country's future, even in the face of many hardships.
Hello, my name is Wyatt Graves. I don't remember where, but in Cambodia I heard the quote, "When two elephants fight, only the grass suffers." I think this quote perfectly encapsulates the story of Cambodia, especially in the latter half of the 20th century. The story of Cambodia is a difficult one, full of war, suffering, and genocide. The story in which millions of innocent people died and many more suffered. It is the story of a country caught in the grasp of a global conflict between the communists and the capitalists, in which the Cambodian people, regardless of their political and ideological alignments, were the ultimate losers. This story is truly tragic, but it does have a happy ending. On December 29, 1998, the divided factions that were the Cambodian people signed the win-win policy, which brought peace to the nation of Cambodia for the first time in nearly 50 years. The win-win policy was different from other diplomatic policies that preceded it, as it was simply an agreement by the Cambodian people to put peace above all else. After 50 continuous years of failed diplomacy, countless regimes, and genocide, the Cambodian people were finally able to stop their suffering and free themselves from war. The Cambodian people faced possibly one of the worst and most hopeless tragedies that humans have ever faced. Yet, because they prioritized peace in their society, they were able to overcome the years of war and suffering. In our own lives, we can learn a lot from the win-win policy. We can use it to remind ourselves that peace is possible, even when it seems completely hopeless. We all face it in our day-to-day lives. It can affect ourselves and the people around us negatively. These issues can often be detrimental to the success of our relationships with those around us, whether it be family members, friends, or romantic partners. These conflicts don't have to affect our relationships negatively. We have the ability to prioritize success in our relationships. We can let go of conflicts and ultimately grow as people. I don't know your problems. I don't know your conflicts. But what I do know is that the next time I'm faced with the issue of conflict, I'm choosing peace. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Grace. The first question people ask me when they find out I'm going to the University of Alabama is, why there? And my response is always, I want something different. I want to change. I believe change is an amazing and important experience in a person's life. And sure, sometimes it is intimidating and scary and doesn't always work out. But for me, I have learned how much joy and growth you can get from change. GS this year is a great example of embracing new experiences and being uncomfortable. Imagine living through my worst fear of getting stuck in a sauna for 6 full days. That is how I felt for our whole homestay. Not feeling anything cool for that amount of time was something I've never had to deal with. I kept expecting metal to be cold when I touched it, or even moving to another spot in the bed. But no, it was all just hot. Yes, it was hard, but as each day passed, I learned new ways to adapt, like going to bed soaking wet after a bucket shower, or fanning myself until my arm felt like it was going to fall off. At the time, these experiences didn't seem like much fun or something to remember. But as I look back, I realized that these are some of my best memories. Cheyenne and me sweating so much that it felt like it was raining, or all of us dancing with the local kids and not caring about the heat. When I move away from Steve-O, it won't always be sunshine and rainbows. Sometimes I will want to give up or cry or go home. But I know that I can do things that are new and different, and I will love and do great in the South. GS has taught me that even if change is uncomfortable or not always fun, it can be the most important part in someone's life and shape them as a person. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Axton Gino. Tonight I will be sharing something I thought about after a reflection on gratitude we did while in Cambodia. I am grateful I was healthy enough to go to Cambodia. Gratitude fuels Cambodia even when it seems like there would be little to be grateful for. Bombs, war, genocide, landmines, disability, pollution, and poverty would suffocate most, but Cambodians breathe. They breathe voraciously and gratefully, despite hardships many of us will struggle to comprehend. Throughout my life, and especially these past couple of years, I have dealt with hardships many of you may not understand. Last year, I wasn't able to go on global studies because of struggles I continue to face. That was why this trip to Cambodia is such a gift. I've spent the last year healing and finding hope to move forward so opportunities like global studies don't slip through my fingers again. While in Cambodia, I saw an inspiring resilience. An elderly man facing his traumas at the S-21 concentration camp in order to educate others. A woman who lost her husband and father yet continues to raise and support her 3 daughters in the small island village of Koh Phangan. A doctor who found inspiration to help heal people after seeing the dehumanizing slaughter of Cambodians. A writer who fought cultural norms to continue her education so she could write and publish her own books. A former boy soldier for the Khmer Rouge who grew into a man who finds and removes thousands of active landmines by hand to save innocent lives. A victim of a landmine who lost his leg and siblings during a walk in the forest and continues to help other child victims learn to live again. Deaf and disabled individuals smile while they dance in the production to raise awareness about their capabilities. Each of their stories inspire me and remind me to keep a good attitude throughout life. Cambodia has taught me how to move forward, and I am grateful for that. Thank you for your time.
Hi, I'm Will. I'm going to be reflecting on our 4 years of GS. So, this photo is taken on the side of the Green River. It's Standing on the tree bench, Wyatt has bruising sunburned blisters in the shape of a chaco. Mustafa's shoes are duct taped to his feet. The rest of us are in a perpetual state of mild hypothermia, so we believe, due to a cloudy, cold, 8-day river trip in early April. On March 31st, 2021, a group of 15-year-olds were loaded onto a bus with the instructions to head west. Our trip mainly consisted of driving to a town, hiking a trail, 7 lunch slippers, then on to the next. This would seem like a dream to many, but it was deemed quite the opposite for us. The main topic of all our conversations was complaint. A small portion of our angst was for good reason, such as Jason eating too many pickle-flavored sunflower seeds. I'm shooting to be in a state of everything tastes like pickles for 3 days. Nevertheless, most of our complaints came from uncontrollable environmental factors. Our young minds wanted to express many minor inconveniences, creating a group culture. We push ourselves away from being present and yearn for comfort, simplicity, and predictable challenges. Since our freshman year, this year was the first time since our group was made up entirely of our class. The group showed out differently than I experienced previously. We knew each other's hardships, limitations, and skills. We have faced struggles alone, at home, and together in Costa Rica, Ecuador, Nepal, and Morocco. Our group had grown from a group of forced friends bonding over a shared negative experience to a cohesive one, able to create a culture and facilitate experiences. When faced with the question of what I've learned traveling the world in high school, I will speak softly of cultural differences, but rather that I've learned the ability to do hard things. The ability to accept, thrive, and enjoy uncontrollable situations can only be taught through travel. I have been asked this question constantly in the past few weeks, last weeks at SMS. Are you excited to graduate? My answer to this question has become, I'm ready. I've conversed with Gina, Sam, and Wyatt, driving through Siem Reap, Grand, and Tuk-Tuk. She asked us about our honest opinion about how the trip had been going. I remember responding something along the lines with, needing to be challenged more. Sam and Wyatt reciprocated this feeling and responded with personal stories about difficulties we had faced in our own independent adventures. Gina understood this feeling as she expressed that we have learned so much through our travels. A month out toilet paper, easily. Traveling 54 straight hours only halfway across the world, no problem. Our foundation has been set. We now have the skills to travel the world independently and teach others what we have learned here. Gordy Bennett once said, maturity is when you stop complaining and making excuses in your life. Realize everything that happens in life is a result of previous choices, and start making new choices to change your life. Thank you.
I really just want to say it again. I'm so proud of these kids. Yeah, you guys are really impressive. Thank you all for coming. I just want to take a second to just thank a few people per tradition, but it's really important. There are 8 faculty members that gave up a month of their lives, their dogs, their families, their partners, their kids, to travel with your kids in our school. And they are these incredible role models. Just for our students to be able to spend a month learning from these adults and growing with them and seeing that they too are human, and see what that process of life is like as they look into their own future as young adults. So just please give a round of applause for the and you've heard me say it many times, but also to the parents who willingly give up their kids to go travel across the world with like the most basic itinerary probably that you could ever look at prior to sending your kid onto an international flight. And the trust you place in our school and those faculty members, and also the trust you place in your own students to know that they will rise to those challenges, that they will come back stronger and a little bit different as well. well. So thank you to you all, thank you to the students again, and thank you for coming.